you're really destined for a lot, and you need to be able to get your head straight.
From our comfort zone to make us realize like, yo, you are destined for more.
I wanted to use my degree to help protect other business owners.
Welcome to the Latin Wealth Podcast, a podcast dedicated to educating the Latino community about entrepreneurship, investing, and business.
Yo, what's going on, Latin Wealth family? Welcome to another episode to the Latin Wealth Podcast. Super excited about today's conversation and today's guest on the podcast. If you are a creator, if you're a business owner, if you're someone that's on social media, you have a brand, this is going to be a very, very important conversation for you. And we're going to be talking about some things that may be uncomfortable for some people. Maybe it may be boring for some people, but it's something that you must pay attention to when you are building your brand. And that is your IP, your intellectual property. All right. So we're going to be diving into the legal side of your business, the legal side of you as a content creator. Again, we're going to be talking about IP, trademarks, copyright, and just honestly using that as a foundation to build wealth and for you to succeed in your business or even as a content creator. So look, I'm going to introduce our guest for today. He is an attorney, motivational speaker, community leader, and he has a mission to empower Latinos through education, law, and mentorship. And look, his passion extends far beyond the courtroom and law and, you know, the complicated jargon. He's deeply invested in uplifting our community through workshop, speaking engagements, and even some really dope content. He is the CEO of SideHustle.Law. Welcome, Pablo Segarra. How you feeling today, brother?
I'm good. After that intro, I feel like I'm on like cloud 28, bro. That was great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I mean, it means a lot. It's a lot of work, man. It's a lot of work. So it's good to be recognized. I don't know if you watch the Noriega podcast, but he's always with Dream Champs. So he always comes on and he says, and he tells everybody, he's like, Snoop Dogg has this great feeling about Drink Champs because what they do is that they give you like a box of roses where they say, we want to give you your flowers while you're still alive to all the people they admire. And Snoop Dogg always says, this is the best reward because it's coming from my own people. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, 100%. It's all good, man. Definitely got to highlight you and honor you. I will say, before we get into your story, your background, IP and the law and all that, you know, I know you're from New York, you're from the Bronx, you're Puerto Rican, but you're also a Mets fan. All right. Now, look, I'm from Cali, man. I'm a Cali Rican. I'm a Dodger fan. So, you know, we handled business last year with y'all, but you guys made a big splash with the recent signing of Juan Soto. Talk to me, man. How you feeling about the Mets coming up this year?
Yeah.
Talk to me.
All right. This is how I like to start a conversation. So I have a picture of me. So, okay, let's get past the whole elephant in the room. The Mets, the last time they won the championship was 1986, blah, 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 whatever. I was 3 years old. I have a picture that I covet of me at the parade with my uncle in full Mets gear, hat and everything at 3 years old with a big ass smile on my face. That's how I feel. I feel like I'm back at the 1986 parade for the Mets, right? I think it's a great signing. I think even just kind of going deeper beyond that, I'm super happy to see a Latino getting all that money, a Dominican getting recognized. I think it's awesome. I think that there's going to be an interesting connection going on with the Mets where you have Lindor, who's Puerto Rican, who's the other top player on the team. And then you have Soto coming in, who's Dominican. New York is going to go crazy. Queens, I could see all the Dominicans taking the Yankee hat off right now and putting the Mets hat on as we speak. So I'm super excited about it. I'm super interested to see the results of it, right? Like, what does that mean for athletes going after him? So I'm amazed and I'm happy.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So you grew up in the Bronx, not too far from Yankee Stadium. What was it, a family thing? What made you become a Mets fan?
So people go, you know, I'm 41 years old, right? So what the younger crowd don't know is that in the 80s, New York was not a Yankees town because the Yankees were playing horrible. The Yankees in the 70s, 80s were trash, right? A lot of younger sorry about that. A lot of New Yorkers at that time frame grew up as Mets fans because what happened was that the Mets were kicking ass. The Mets were doing great. So we had a winning product. It was a different vibe. And I grew up that way because my grandmother was a big Mets fan. And so in my family, you had to be a Mets fan or you weren't allowed to eat this. So
Right.
I had to become a Mets fan and I was born into it. I get a lot of slack from it because of the fact that I am born and raised in the Bronx. And like you said, I'm only 20 minutes away from Yankee Stadium. But hey, whatever, man. It is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. That's what's up. So talk to me, man, about growing up in the Bronx. You grew up in the Bronx in the 80s. You grew up with your mom working hard, working late nights and whatnot. And just talk to me about growing up in that environment, you know?
Yeah. It's New York, for those that don't know, New York in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s was a very difficult time growing up. I grew up in the time frame where I was coming out of what's called the Bronx is burning. So in the late 70s, what happened was that the city was bankrupt, and basically what landlords would do for buildings is that instead of fixing up the buildings to, keep the people living in the buildings, they would just burn them down because they would be able to collect more money on the insurance than they would from the rent from people that live there. So this caused widespread poverty. I was born at a time frame where that was over with and it was kind of done with it. But I do clearly remember going through half of the Bronx and it being in rubble, like just literally like just ash and just buildings collapsed, right? Like that was the time frame that it was. And then, you had this whole unfortunate crack war that happened. Late 80s, early 90s, you had just this influx of just crack cocaine. You had the 80s, you had this AIDS epidemic. So New York was a mess, man. I mean, it really was. And, even growing up 6 or 7 years old, I remember it was the first time I saw a gun pulled out on me, and it wasn't pulled out on me. It was pulled out on one of my neighbors. Unfortunately, I almost got hit by a car. But I remember grabbing my best friend who was 2 years younger than me. So 5 years old, 7 years old, having to grab him and hide under a car to avoid if we're going to get shot or not. I think that goes to say just how it was growing up at that time frame. Yeah.
100%. So talk to me about you in high school. Were you an athlete? Were you a good student? What did that look like for you?
Oh, this is great, man. We're getting deep. Okay. So I went to school in the Bronx up until junior high school. Once I hit high school, my options were, I wouldn't say they were limited, but it was either do I stay in my local high school, which was super dangerous, or do I go downtown Manhattan? So I was a decent student. I had the opportunity to go downtown to a school called High School for Environmental Studies, which was in Midtown. So here I am, never really left the Bronx too much, right? When I was about 12, 13. And now I'm hitting 13, 14, and I have a MetroCard pass, which means that I can take the train for free. I take the bus for free. And I can go to all 5 boroughs of New York wherever I wanted to. So that opened up a whole brand new world for me because I'm 13, 14 on the train, an hour and 20 minutes a day, sometimes 2 hours a day. But I'm meeting new people. I'm meeting people from different parts of New York, different types of economic classes, different types of backgrounds. So I love the mix that I grew up in because I got to try everybody's food, right? So who wouldn't want to do that? I mean, I've had Jamaican food, I've had like Italian food, I've had Russian food, I've had Jewish, so it's like a really broad spectrum of people that I was able to grow up with at that time frame. And high school New York was a little bit safer. This was like the late 90s, early 2000s. And the city was kind of clearing up a little bit more thanks to, at that time, Rudy Giuliani, who, before he went nuts, cleaned up a lot of the city. And my mom was actually a big part of that. My mom was actually deputy mayor in New York at that time. So she was the first Puerto Rican woman and only Puerto Rican woman to be deputy mayor in New York, something I'm very proud of. And that time frame in high school really molded me a lot because it opened up my eyes to be comfortable with other cultures and religions and races. But then also being able to explore the city. I got to hang out my whole high school years in every borough, so it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. So I'm curious, you're 13, 14, you got the Metro card pass. You can go to any borough. Once you stepped out of the Bronx, what was like the first moment that you felt like, yo, this is a culture shock for me. This is something completely different. I'm not used to seeing this. I know for me, I've had a couple of those moments growing up. Was born in LA, lived in Oregon for a bit. And when I lived in Portland, Oregon, I was only around Mexican, Black, and whites. That's it.
Yeah.
So we moved down to Sacramento where I grew up, and now I'm around Filipinos, I'm around Indians, I'm around all types of people. It's more of a melting pot. I even remember when I first went to my first Puerto Rican Day parade in New York. I think it was like 2019, 2018. Being around, as a proud Puerto Rican, being around all these Puerto Ricans was just like, this is insane. What was that first moment for you that you witnessed, like, this is a culture shock being outside the Bronx?
Yeah, I think one really important one happened to me actually a lot later in life. I think that I had kind of like minor ones, right? Like when I was in high school, more so than anything, where it was, now that you have friends from different economic classes, economic backgrounds, now I'm like invited to some people's houses for parties in like the Upper East Side of New York, which is literally like some of the richest, most expensive real estate in the world, right? So now it's different when I'm invited to these people's homes, and for, as a kid, right? Like walking in a birthday party, stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, we have a maid and a butler, and we have 5 bedrooms where they would take 2 apartments and knock the wall down and turn it into to one big apartment. So stuff like that definitely hit me. I can't think of like a major one at that time, because I felt that I had the blessing to really be circulated and get to know a lot of people pretty quickly when I was in high school. But I was 30 years old when I had the most impactful one, right? Was when I started my first day of law school. So I went to New York Law School, which is downtown New York. And I was a police officer at the time. I'm a retired cop. And I was working as a police officer in the daytime, and I was going to law school at night. But when I walked into the room the first day for orientation of law school, there was about 215 to 220 fellow law students. I looked around the room and I counted, and I'd say there were maybe 15 to 18 minorities, right, out of that entire room. So that really was the first time that I was like culture shocked, where I'm like surrounded by so many white people, right? Now, that is not a negative thing on them, because my time in New York Law School was amazing. I never had any issues, tons of help, made great friends that even to this day, they're still some of my best friends. So it was more of a me thing, where just I wasn't used to walking into this room and seeing this, and that was probably the biggest one. And then I'd say the second biggest one that happened to me too was my first like year as a police officer. I was working in most of my career, I worked in Washington Heights, which is like Little Dominican Republic. I love Washington Heights because I partially grew up there too. But it's also, we had the highest amount of loud noise complaints and domestic violence complaints. So there's a lot going on there behind the scenes, right? And I remember standing I was about 22, and I remember standing at our roll call for the midnight shift, which is where I was working at that time. And here we have a community that 80%, 70% speak Spanish. And I'm looking around the room, and there's about maybe 15 police officers there, and there's only 4 of us that are not white, and only 2 of us speak Spanish, which is me and my partner. So definitely had a couple of instances, more so as I got older than really when I was younger.
Yeah, 100%. And so you mentioned and thank you for sharing that. You mentioned your career as a police officer. It was about a 13-year career, and about halfway through your career, an accident happened that really changed the trajectory of your physical health, and probably on your mindset of like, yo, what's next for me? Like, is this going to be the full picture of me, full picture of my life? Talk about the accident that changed the course of your life, and how that shifted your mindset, if it did.
Yeah. So a lot of times you grow up thinking that you're going to be on this like linear path, right? At that time, I left college early to be a police officer at 21. So I was one of the youngest ones in my entire class. So my goal and my thought and my mindset was, I'm going to be a police officer for 20 years. I'm going to retire at 41, 42, move up the department, get my check, move to Florida, get chubby, stay in my pool, right? Yeah. That was my life, right? That was my thought process. And then I had this accident, and I was going to help another police officer when a car crashed into me and knocked me into a light pole. And I literally went headfirst to a light pole. I had multiple injuries, multiple surgeries, concussion, a lot of things you could think, a lot of injuries, right? I was in physical therapy almost about 5 to 7 years for different surgeries and body parts and stuff like that. So I feel like I had like a new lease on life. I feel like God was telling me that, I kind of needed to get my head straight, because before that, I also was kind of reckless. I was hanging out a lot. Imagine, you're 23 years old, you have, career set for you. You're driving around in this big, beautiful car that you could never afford, and you have the most money you ever had in your life in your pocket. And I'm comfortable. I'm hanging out, 15, 20 minutes away from my house, drinking too much, hanging out too late, waking up late to get to work. And I feel that like this accident kind of woke me up and gave me a slap in the head and said like, hey, you're really destined for a lot, and you need to be able to get your head straight to get there. And that accident, one of my friends, I was just in California a couple of months ago, and I saw a friend of mine that I went to high school with, and he was like, yo, man, I don't know how you're going to take this, but I think that accident was the best thing that ever happened to you. Right. And I'm like, wait, what are you talking about, bro? He's like, nah, like you got your shit together like after that happened, and he's like, we don't know, who knows what would have happened if you didn't have that accident. So I feel like I got a second lease on life, and every day of my life, I know what it is I feel appreciative that I can walk, eat, and sleep without assistance, because I've needed assistance to do a lot of those things, 10 years ago. So.
That's incredible. Like you said, sometimes God will shake us up from our comfort zone to make us realize like, yo, you are destined for more. There's more for you. And there's some things that you need to appreciate about your life. And again, sometimes he puts us through some trials. But on the other side of that, it can be a beautiful struggle, right? Beautiful end to it, I should say. So talk to me. So you were comfortable, you got into the accident. Now you are thinking about law school. You mentioned that you are sitting in the room with over 200 people. Talk to us about law school and why you even went that route in your career.
So my mom is a lawyer, right? She's never really practiced, but she's used her degree to be able to get to multiple forms of government. And I saw the impact that she had on people, right? Through her different career opportunities that she was able to fully maximize, she's helped her community out so much. And so I wanted to leave that same impact. I really wanted to have that impact on the world too. And me going to law school, I felt that like at that time, after the accident, I'm kind of like torn on it, right? Because the police department, I owe a lot to them because they took care of me. Physically, I didn't have to pay $1 for any of my surgeries because it happened at work. So I didn't have the burden of healthcare issues, right? Because they were helping me through it, and they did 100%. On the other side of that, I feel that what happens with the police department when you're in that situation, they literally treat you what's called a broken toy. So they send you to offices, you're at the will of the department, they could pick you up and send you anywhere you want to go. I got sent from working about 15 minutes from my house to working an hour and a half from my house, right?
Wow.
So there was a huge difference, literally from a Friday to a Monday. I had already made the decision to go to law school because I was tired of the treatment like that, right? I felt like I got hurt at work. This was something that I was doing in the middle of my career. And I went from literally being in the best shape of my life to being in a wheelchair. So the department, like I was torn because they were taking care of me, but at the same time, I was mad that I was treated this way. So I got so pissed off that I went to law school. I'm like, you know what? I was doing my master's at that time in government. I was taking a master's degree, and I decided to leave it, and I went straight to law school, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made. And it was a difficult journey to get there, to get into law school. I talked to a lot of friends about it who have the the idea to want to go. And I tell them it's a real commitment, right? Like it's a few years to get in, because it's at least a year to a year and a half to get in. You have to take tests to get there, not including your undergrad. And then when you get in, it's at least a 3-year commitment. And then after that, it's about a year to a year and a half of taking a bar exam. And then you have to look for a job after that. So you're talking about a 4 to 7 year stint just to get your footing up, right? To be able to stand on your own 2 feet in this career.
Wow.
But it's, like you said, it's a beautiful struggle, man. It's worth it.
And so during this time, were you still in New York? Were you thinking about, I know you said you were thinking about moving to the DR or Puerto Rico or Miami. Were you in that, was this in the same timeline, or did that come a little after?
Yeah, I had a issue when I hit about my 20s, right? My mid-20s, I'd say, around the same time as the accident. I love New York. I mean, I grew up a New Yorker through and through, right? By accident, no matter where I live, it don't go away. You can spot it a mile away. Ask me to say water, and it's always with a D. Coffee's always with a W, right? But I didn't recognize the city that I grew up in when I hit my 20s. It was a very different city. Now, it was a safer city, so I kind of go through that in my head where I'm like, is it that I really fell in love with the dangerous New York? I don't know, But I think it's more so that it was culture. It was real culture. It was hip hop. It was Southside. I grew up in the middle of all that, and seeing actual culture in front of me. When the 2000s came, I kind of felt like it was shifted into Disney, right? Where like literally Disney took over Times Square, and I didn't recognize any of that stuff anymore. And it kind of felt almost like too commercialized for me. It's a hard way to explain it, but that's the only way I can kind of get through it. And I just wanted something else. I didn't want to live there no more. So my current wife, what we did was, at the time we were dating, we looked at different places throughout the United States. The West Coast was too far for us. We actually went to Texas. I know you're out there. We went to Houston, and we took a long look at Houston. My plan was to transfer police departments to go work there. I didn't like it too much. I kind of felt like you were either white, black, or Mexican. That was it, and everybody kind of stayed separate, which I don't know if it's like that, but that was the impression I got. Went to Miami, thought Miami was way too expensive and way too flashy. I didn't want to live that life. Puerto Rico was something that we always thought about. Unfortunately, I love Puerto Rico, but it's difficult to live there right now. And, it has been for some time. So I needed to get out the city, and I really just didn't want to be there no more. And we took a leap of faith where we were definitely coming to Dominican Republic a lot. My wife is Dominican. Her family lived here. They still live here. We were visiting them, a few times a year, and I fell in love with it. I mean, I've grown up in the Bronx and Washington Heights as well too. And I don't know, just something about it that I wanted more adventure. I wanted something different. I didn't want to just do the cookie cutter stuff.
Yeah, 100%. We'll tap in more about you moving to DR, some of the benefits, and maybe even your thoughts on why it's difficult to live in Puerto Rico in a bit. But I want to circle back to your career as an attorney. How did you get to the point that you were focusing specifically like on trademarks, intellectual properties, copyright, things of that nature? What interests you about that part of it?
Yeah, so I came out of law school, and I've had a very non-traditional career as a student and as a career, right? I came out of law school and I didn't practice right away. So I went into law school at 30 years old. On my second career, I knew that I was not going to be able to be a young rookie attorney working 70 hours a week at the bottom rung, working my way up to be partner. That just wasn't my life, because I went through that already at 21 as a rookie cop, and I wasn't going to do it again. And physically, I couldn't do it anymore either, because I have screws in my spine, unfortunately, as well to the accident. So I had to take that into account as well too. And I came out of law school and I started working for a nonprofit, one of the largest Latino nonprofits in the East Coast. We do conferences in New York and Puerto Rico, and it's almost every politician in the East Coast you could think of is there, right? So again, impact. I got to see this impact. I got to work closely with nonprofit organizations in Puerto Rico, in New York, in Dominican Republic, and really understand the needs of the organizations. And I got to host, create, do tons of great, awesome events that I really just fell in love with it. So I was able to take that experience, and I actually started my own company. right? And it was based on that. It was based on travel and this idea of connecting diaspora like us, right? We're both Puerto Rican. We don't live in Puerto Rico. I don't know if you were ever born and raised or lived there. I wasn't. I'm from New York, right? And so there's always been kind of a disconnect between the culture in the States and the culture in the Caribbean. And I wanted to create a company that would help to bridge that divide and really unify a lot of us, right? Went well, it was going good. I'm in Travel and Leisure as the top 50 most notable people in travel, and right behind Mickey Mouse, which I'm super happy about.
That's big.
But then I lost it all, right? Like I had a company with somebody who I thought was my best friend at the time. And we did this huge event in Miami, had a great, 3-day summit, all these great leaders. We had a concert, we had a documentary filmed about it. And then I get home and I'm locked out of my company, locked out of my bank account, locked out of my social media, can't get back into anything, lost my own trademark that I paid and filed for. And I saw that and I'm like, wow, so a business owner can actually go through all of this and then from one day to the next lose everything like that in a second. Call the attorneys that we had at the time that were working with us. They couldn't help me because it was a dispute between owners. There was nothing they could do about it. So I was left on my own, really. I had to walk away from it. And I had a long talk with my mentor, my family, and trying to figure out what the next steps was. Do I want to go to court and fight this? And I realized I was just like, it's better to walk away and start something brand new. So having that mindset, right, I knew that I wanted to use my degree to help protect other business owners and make sure that this doesn't happen to them. So I really fell in love with the technology space. As you can see my little Nintendo thing back there. I've been in love with technology since I was playing Commodore. I was like 5 years old. And I started looking into the crypto space a lot, which was, I've been an investor in it for a while, trying to understand it, really wanted to work in it, couldn't find the right job for it. And then I found this company that merged everything that I love, which was called Block Asset. We were the only company in the world that had the NFT rights to Muhammad Ali's estate. So I was able to come in and help negotiate with that and kind of figure out the issues as to, well, having his name, image, and likeness as an NFT on the blockchain, there's a lot there. Like, how do we get him paid? Number one, what are the outs of the contract? Like, how do we do it even just in terms of a developer state, right? Like, how do we do all that? And I was just in the mix of all that through my previous company in Miami when all of the NFT boom was coming around and this blockchain technology was really taking off. I was in the middle of it doing something else, right? So I got to see it firsthand and I started working with them. They took a shot on me, right, as a brand new attorney. And I loved it. I fell in love with it. I was going with them to different conferences, helping them to get new clients. We were able to put a book of about, I think it was like about 50 different UFC athletes and soccer players when I left. And I was able to take that experience and flip it into my own thing. And I said, you know what? I have enough experience now. This is what I want to do. I know how to do it. Let me start going on my own. And I've advised about 160 clients at this point. And I've spoken at, 50 different events on these different topics.
Wow. So now we can start to get into giving some practical steps to help the listeners protect their brand and their business. But I have to ask, man, circling back to the travel business that you had and the event, looking back at it, what would be 3 things that you would do differently to prevent all that you went through? Because that's pretty crazy. I mean, you partner with somebody, everything's going good, and next thing you know, you're locked out of everything. What are 3 things that you would do differently in that situation?
Number 1 is make sure you put everything on paper. And I advise all of my clients this all the time, no matter who you do business with, if it's your mom, it's got to be on paper. And it's not that you're worried that something's going to happen. It's that I had a friend of mine that was one of my physical therapists. I helped him to go buy a new car or something. Like literally, I just picked him up and took him there. But he said something to me that I'll never forget. He's like, great business leads to great friends, right? And he's like, but if you're doing business with a great friend, you have to have that foundation.
For sure.
Right. And I never forgot that because it's like, well, if we're friends doing business together, we shouldn't have a problem putting it down on paper because it helps with the expectations that we're going to both have in this business. So sometimes people look at, especially our community, unfortunately, looks at it as like, when you're putting the contract on paper, you don't trust me. It's not that. I trust you enough that I want to just make it clear as to, this is what you're bringing to the business, this is what I'm bringing to the business, this is what I expect of you, this is what you expect of me. And we're going to solidify that and grow from there. That's number one. Number two, what I would say is that be careful who you let into your home when it comes to business, right?
That's
you definitely
good.
want to keep your inner circle. And the way I draw it out sometimes literally, where it's like you have like an inner circle around you, right? Your immediate family members, right? Like maybe immediate friends that you know for a long time, that you know have your best interests at heart. And then you kind of have like extended circles, right? Like the other people that you kind of do business with. And you want to be careful with who you let into your house specifically, because you don't know what they're bringing, right? And the baggage that they come to you and try to drag on you.
Their intentions.
And then, their intentions, right? You want to be careful with that. And I think that third, when it comes to the IP and intellectual property, is that definitely file your trademarks. Definitely make sure that you have a clear contract that says that whatever creations you have, right, before the business, you're going to continuously own unless you want to give it to the company. So there's contracts to be able to come into a company with your own inventions, with your own stuff that you trademark, with your own copyrights, right? And you have the option. You can either say, I'm going to put it into the company and the company is going to own it outright no matter what, or I'm going to keep ownership of this, but we're going to do a license agreement where the company will use that throughout the company. And whether you get paid something, it could be $1, it could be $1,000 a week, whatever it's going to be. But it's important to have those three things in mind when you're doing business.
And you're speaking specifically when doing business with somebody else, a partner, right?
Yes. Yeah. Most of the time, yes. Well,
Most of the time.
Either business with a partner, or if you're business with a partner, yes. But if you're being brought into a company on your own, right? Maybe not like partner level, but something that they want to be able to use your creations or something for their company.
Got you. Okay. I love that. So you gave 3 amazing steps, but for the individuals out there that maybe are just getting into business, or maybe they've been creating content, they have a brand or something like that, maybe they have a podcast, what are some steps that you would advise somebody out there to take immediately to get done? Let's take somebody that's a solo business owner, a solo content creator that has a solo brand. Maybe don't have too many teammates or anything like that just yet.
Yeah, IP is number one.
Yep.
Right.
Talk about it.
What I talk to various communities, and I'm mostly involved in the tech industry, but because I'm Latino and because I speak Spanish, our community just gravitates towards me, right? Like a lot of my clients happen to be Latinos because of just the fact that I'm Latino, right? And unfortunately, a lot of us, we have grown up thinking that we can, not unfortunately, it is a fortunate thing, but it's backfired against us. So we can just grow up and create something and give it out to the world because we all are creative people, right? Unfortunately, the way business works, that can work against you, right? So if you're doing your own thing, your own podcast, right? You're a solo person, you're a creator, anything like that. Number one is you want to trademark, you want to create a company, first of all. Take a step back. You want to create a company. You don't want to do business under your name. Why? What happens is that, let's say I have a business. Let's say I don't have a business and I'm doing some sort of creations, content, whatever. Something happens that I get sued, right? And something happens that I made a mistake. And because of my mistake, it wasn't intentional or not, I am getting sued. The courts will be able to come after, if I don't have a business, my house, my car, personally against me, right? So that's a big problem. But if you have a business, unless you've done something criminal, something crazy with the business, they can only go after the assets of the business, right? That's it. Now, I'm kind of torn to use this example, but Donald Trump has filed for bankruptcy a lot of times and he's still a billionaire, right? Because he understands that. He understands debt and he understands the protection that bankruptcy provides you. Some of my best friends and my partners in my podcast, they're both bankruptcy attorneys. So I get told this all the time, but it's like bankruptcy is your friend. It's just a process, but we put such a bad connotation of it but that's all it really is. It's a business process, right? So number one is definitely create your own company, do all of your business under that company, because whatever happens, you could shut down the company, and you're not going to get personally held liable for it. The second thing is that after that, I would say that your creations, we need to copyright or patent them, right? I'm sorry, copyright or patent or trademark them, right? And the differences being between those is that a trademark is like the name or the brand, the logo, right? The slogan, right? What the company is. The copyright is the creations of that company. And then the patent, it's going to be like the new discoveries of the company, the process of the company, right?
That's good.
Nike is trademarked. Some sort of song, let's just say that Nike writes as part of their advertisement is a copyright. And then whatever patents, the patent of the shoe, right? The way the shoe is designed, that's the patent for it. So I would say that figure out, learn those three buckets, the differences. You don't need to learn everything about them, but learn the differences so you can keep that in mind. And then the third thing I'm going to say is that to really get your contracts in order when doing business with others. Now, you don't need to starting off, you don't need to get a whole huge book of contracts and I need all these agreements, to protect my stuff. It depends, right? Like if you're just starting off, a simple agreement, a collaboration agreement, most likely because you're going to work with a lot of people, right? So it's like you need to get that growing. So having your own standard collaboration agreement, this is how we work together. Like I said before, setting the expectations. This is how we work together, where it's going to be payment or not, promotion or not. But this is just how we're going to work together on this, so everybody knows ahead of time. Putting a time limit on it and saying we're only going to have this contract together for a year, because what you don't want to happen is that same person calls you in 5 years and say, hey, what about this contract, right? You want to be able to limit the time. So I think those three are the best ways. Get your company together. Learn the differences between intellectual property, between a trademark, a patent, and a copyright. And then definitely get your collaboration agreements together, just so you're ready to go.
Oh, that's good information. Thank you for that. So let me ask you this. So let's just say if somebody has a business, they have an LLC, and they have, they have a trademark underneath that business, but the business is sued, it then gets shut down.
Yeah.
Does the trademark go away? Who owns the trademark at that point?
That's the beauty of trademarks.
Okay.
So if you have this company, right, and let's say I filed for a trademark, I have a company, and like you said, there's some issues, we have to shut down the company. Before that happens, you have to do what's called winding down the business, right? It's a process. You have to kind of get all your books in order, your clients, let people know what's going on, right? Kind of figure that out, because if you're going to shut down the business and you have 50 clients, that's a problem, right? You need to let them know what's going on. So as part of that winding down business, what you can do is you can take that trademark and you could do what's called an assignment. And you could basically say, now, again, depending on your situation, right? If you are, let's say, a solo business owner, just to make this easier, if you're a solo business owner, you could just assign that trademark to you personally. So it goes from, Pablo Segarra Company Co. Now it's owned by Pablo Segarra. And that's like it's a very minimal fee. It's nominal fee. It's really not a lot of money. But now you have that trademark for you. And then whatever happens going down the line, it's yours no matter what. If you don't do that and the company completely shuts down, yes, then it's a big problem because, the owner no longer exists, right, for the company. So it's almost like a person has passed away. Like, what do you do in that situation with the trademark?
Right.
So that's the way I would suggest it, is that if you're going to wind down the company towards the end of it, keep that in mind and do those assignments to you personally, or whatever designated person that will be, to make sure that you personally own those trademarks now and the company does not.
So I think it depends on the situation, but for a one-person business owner or a content creator, do you think it's a good idea for them just to file the trademark or patent underneath their name initially?
It depends. I mean, it really depends. I have done both, and I don't think there's really any wrong answer. It depends on the route you want to go. If you're just saying, I'm going to be a content creator, I'm going to be a service provider, something like that, and I'm not looking for investments, right? Like I'm going to just build my company up from the services that I provide. I'm going to do that. I don't think there's really a wrong way to go about it, whether it's personally or whether it's towards the business. I do suggest more of the business because you are running a business, right? But then if you're going to be, I work with a lot of tech founders, right? So if you're going to be raising money, if you're going to go through Series A, B, C, D funding, that needs to be a part of the company. It needs to be. Because what happens is that when it comes to funding, and you're looking for investors and you're looking for VC investment, they're going to want to see a couple of things. One of them is that you have a corporation created in the state of Delaware. That's it. You need to just create the corporation in the state of Delaware, nowhere else in Delaware. The second thing is the Delaware court system has a lot of business protections. There's literally a court that is just for business, and it's a lot easier. I do business with Delaware all the time because I give you a good example. I was looking to start a nonprofit for one of my clients in the state of Wyoming recently, and it took us 6 weeks to get a no from the state of Wyoming, right? And then we had to kind of figure out what to do with that no. And it was because of a minor error in like the system or whatever it was, right? I went to Delaware and I had the same nonprofit created within 2 days, 48 hours, and we had the company created. So the state of Delaware is very efficient and they're very friendly, believe it or not. I come from a state that when you call any state or city agency in New York, they'd only hang up on you, right? But the state of Delaware, I don't know what it is. They're super nice. They're super friendly. They're super helpful because that's what they do in that business. So the state of Delaware is very important for that. So that's why there. What was it? Getting back to the question before that? You got it.
Shoot, I forgot.
Why the state? Like we're going to the state of Delaware, so the corporation.
Yeah. So
the funding. I'm sorry, the funding part.
Yes. Go ahead. Yeah.
So if you are a tech company, right? If you're any company that's really looking towards raising millions of dollars, that needs to be in the name of the company because it helps to raise the valuation of your company. So when you go and you say like, and they're going to ask you, VCs are going to ask you that too. They're going to say, well, do you own the trademark name of your company? If you don't, you need to file it today. If there's a logo, right? Like I've had a company before where we almost got a few million invested into it just because the logo. The guy, like we met with a VC that, was worth almost $1 billion, and he was ready to put hundreds of thousands of dollars at that time into the company because he was just like, I love the logo. That's it. The name is great. The logo caught it. We got to run with that, right? So it's like, it's important that you keep that intellectual property under the company because then it raises the valuation of the company when it comes time for these investors to come and knock down your door to give you money.
Small question. If you have multiple logos for a company, can you file it all at once or does it need to be filed separately for each different logo?
There's differences. If you're doing a copyright, right, which is not a logo or the name of the company, it's the creation of it, you can do up to like 99 of them. So you can do it all on one application. When it comes to trademarks, it's different. The name and the logos have to be two separate applications. You have to file it. And what I always suggest is that if you're in that situation, you do both because if you're going to have the name of your company, more than likely, you're not going to change the name of the company in 5 years, right? If you have a logo, I'd say unless you're telling me that you paid a designer to create your logo, unless you're telling me that you fell in love with this logo, unless you're telling me that you're going to stick with this, it's everything that represents you, then I would say start with the name and then let's get you to the point of the logo is worth you spending more money on and then protect the logo. That's what I recommend that we always do.
Yeah, because even if you fall in love with it, you pay somebody, it can still change in a couple of years.
And then guess what? You lose a trademark because you changed the logo. So, and I work with companies too, where even the logo, they have filed for black and white images of the logo. And they came back to me and they said, okay, we want to protect the color of the logo too, because this color is representative towards us. We did our research. We know like this color is us. So what we did was that we went back and filed those same logos under color as well too, because they were very insistent on protecting the color.
Wow.
And so trademarks are, I sound like a nerd, I know, but I love it because trademarks.
It's good. It's great. This is great.
Yeah, you can go in, you can trademark sounds, you can trademark smells, you could trademark colors, slogans, names, right? And recently, I was doing some research on a company that was Crayola. That Crayola had a big issue because there was a color that they were trying to trademark, and the government was giving them a lot of issues for it. And after a while, they got the trademark done, but it was a lot of issues to do that. You can trademark sounds, so like the Netflix, like ba-doom, right? The NBC chimes, like those are things that are trademarked. You can't recreate them.
Incredible. So let me ask you about the timing of trademarks, copyrights, and all this. When would you advise that somebody looks into trademarking? So for example, I know to file a trademark out here, or to file a trademark in general, it takes about a year for it to be completed. Yeah. When should somebody start to think about that process? Immediately, right? What if we just have an idea?
It's a good question. I got two different answers to that. One is that it does take a long time. It takes, at this point, at least a year, right? But you are retroactively protected from the day you file. So if I file this today and I get it next year, I'm still protected within that year, right?
Good.
So that's one great thing about the government that they have gotten right. The second thing is that it depends on your situation. If you are a solo person doing a service business, right? I would say you need to file the trademark name as soon as you can, right before you start doing business. Even if it's a day before you start doing business, fine. But if you know this is the name of my company, I'm launching my website tomorrow, okay, call me today so we can file the trademark for you today, right? Because that way you're protected. The minute it goes public, you're already protected. When it comes to a company that's a little bit further down the line and they want to do a new product, right? We're going to launch, we're going to launch another version of whatever it is we're doing now. We got a new product line coming out. Let's say like a hair company, right? I was advising some hair clothing, some hair lines, some hair products of about a year ago. And they were launching a new product that hadn't gone public yet, right? So what they told me was that, look, we're launching this. We already know that. We're just putting the pieces together, getting the inventory together so we could send it out. So we were able to file the trademark before they launched it, before they had evidence of use, right? Which is something you have to show to the government. So what we did was that there's two different types of applications. There's the 1A application, which means that I've already been using this product. It's already out there. All I have to do is send in a piece of evidence of the website, copy it, send it to the government, and you're good, right? Then there's the 1B application, which means that we haven't launched this product yet. We haven't launched this name yet, but we're going to do it within the next year. So I want to reserve the name or reserve the logo now, and then I'll get back to you once I have that evidence to show you that I have used it. And so you can go either way, but it all depends on the situation you're in.
How much time do you have left, man? Do you have like about 15 more minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, because I want to get into this. I want to get into AI. I want to get into even a little bit of Web3. Right now, currently, what is it? December 18th, 2024. The whole AI movement, and it's booming right now. Web3 is kind of creeping back. I don't know if you notice it. People are starting to buy more NFTs and whatnot. What are some legal issues that you have found within this space that are just hula hoops to jump around?
How much time you got, man? So I have a love and hate, but it's much more love than hate relationship with Web3 specifically. AI is kind of a different monster that's kind of creeped up on us. I'm part of the New York State Bar Association's task force on emerging digital finance and currency, right? All of that just means that we've trained about 400 to 500 attorneys on these various issues: AI, on Web3, on cryptocurrency, on blockchain, and regulations for crypto are the main issue. right? It's that we live in this gray area where the SEC has unfortunately done what's called enforcement by action. In other words, the SEC can send you what's called a Wells notice, right? A Wells notice just means we're letting you know that we are investigating you, and we may bring charges against you. We may not bring charges against you. We haven't decided that, but we want to let you know that we're investigating, right? And they've done that a lot. That's how they've operated, right? So it's a tough place to be in, because I advise a lot of clients, depending on what they're doing in Web3, I say, why would you start a company in the United States that you don't even know if the government's going to come after you or not? Why bother, right? And it hurts me to say that, because I want the United States to be the number one leading nation in innovation. Unfortunately, it hasn't been as friendly to Web3, right? To Web3 clients that I have. And so what I tell them is that if you go to Dubai, if you go to these some of the Middle Eastern countries, they literally provide you with a license to operate in the country. They provide you with office space in the country. They provide you with protections. They provide you with citizenship. Of course, you have to pay, right, as with anywhere in the world. But they provide you with all these protections that you're not going to go to jail, bro. We got you, you know? And they provide you what's called a sandbox. So a sandbox just means that they're letting you test out these innovations, and there's not going to be any type of criminal actions against you, right? Unless you do something crazy, right?
Right.
So what I say is that regulations have been the main issue, and I don't necessarily think we're going to have a solution to that in the next couple of years. I'm interested to see what's going to happen with this new administration, who is incredibly crypto friendly. But what people don't realize is that the number one industry to donate to this past election is crypto. They have not even close donated the most money to both candidates, to Kamala and to Donald Trump, because we understand that there's tons of money involved in this, but there's also tons of innovation involved in this, right? And so the lack of regulations, where it's like a gray area where you're not too sure how to operate, it's caused problems, and I would say that it's stifled our innovation. The state of California, which I use a lot because it's one of the most interesting case studies to me, they've put your car titles on the blockchain for the state of California. They've created an NFT for it, and your car title is now on the blockchain in the state of California. That's gigantic. And I say that because I personally have an issue where my father passed away last year in the state of New York. I had to go to New York and I had to handle his estate, right? So one of the issues was a vehicle. I had to go to New York. I had to deal with everything and sell his vehicle. I did that, and I could not go to the DMV office to hand them the license plate just because of timing reasons. So they provide you an option to mail the plates up to the state of New York, their office. I did that, and the state lost the plates. So I come back home to the Dominican Republic, where I currently live, and I'm back and forth with them for 9 months to solve this issue. But what happens in the meantime, in those 9 months, the state of New York, they force you to pay insurance on the plates, not the vehicle, it's the plates. So I could prove that the car was sold to somebody else already. I could prove that they sold it to somebody else, but because they could not find my plates, I was forced to pay insurance on a vehicle that I did not own, that I sold, that I got rid of earlier in the year. And you think the insurance company gave me that money back? Of course not. They said, sorry, you can only prove. So this is what I'm saying, that if we have clearer regulations how to manage this process, then this innovation that the state of California has done could be throughout the United States, right? We can have more of it where our lives would be faster and easier.
100%. No, that's good information. A lot of great information so far. We really appreciate you. I do want to ask you, I want to circle back to you moving to DR, maybe just for about 2 to 3 minutes. You mentioned you moving to DR about 7 years ago. You've been enjoying a lot of development out there. We speak about the Dominican Republic all the time on this platform, and the how much it's been growing and whatnot. But you also spoke about the difficulties of living in Puerto Rico. I don't know if I want you to compare the two. If you want, you could, but talk to us about some of the pros of living in the DR, and then maybe some of the things that are going on in PR and Puerto Rico that you feel like that are a little bit more of a struggle to live out there.
I love both islands. That's just the way I've grown up. I fit into both worlds. I'm actually going to Puerto Rico tomorrow. I live in the Dominican Republic. I have family there. I have family here. So I really love both of them. And when we're making that decision to make that move, unfortunately, Puerto Rico has gone through a lot. I mean, even before 2017 was when we had Hurricane Maria. The entire electric grid was completely destroyed, wiped out. The organization I was working with, our chairperson at the time was on the first plane to Puerto Rico with the governor of New York to provide aid, right? I did the following year, I did a big nonprofit and business expo in the convention center of Puerto Rico. We were able to bring together 65 businesses together to grow Puerto Rico and help us come out of this hole, right, that we were in. Unfortunately, there's a lot of corruption going on the island. Unfortunately, even recently, we had a gubernatorial race where the independence leader, the Independence Party, for the first time in maybe 50 years, had the possibility to actually win and become governor of Puerto Rico, right? There was some inklings there as to corruption. I don't want to get too far into that, but he lost the election, right? So then the person that is now in charge of the election was basically our link to Donald Trump at the time when he came and he threw all the paper towels at us, right, and everything like that. So there's a lot of just turmoil going on, and it's very difficult to have a solid standing in Puerto Rico because of the turmoil that we're not able to provide enough jobs. And I give a great example in Puerto Rico of when I did this exact nonprofit expo. I made sure that we invited local law students to this expo, to this conference, so they can give them the exposure of meeting all of these elected officials and, really get in the room. And when I did that, I had a side conversation with about 10 of them. And I asked them, I'm like, well, what's the plans? And every single one of them, and it hurt my heart, every single one of them was like, well, I'm not going to look for a job here as a lawyer because there's no jobs and then nobody pays. I'm going to go to Florida. I'm going to go to New York. I'm going to go to Boston, right? Because there was just no work on the island. There was no money coming in for them. It didn't make sense for them to stay there. So there's been a huge brain drain going on a little bit before Hurricane Maria, where Hurricane Maria just kind of forced everybody out. So now the largest amount of Puerto Ricans outside of Puerto Rico are in Florida. They're in the Orlando area, not New York anymore, right? So a lot of just turmoil going on there, right? Dominican Republic, we have, as any developing country, we have our issues too, right? Me living in my neighborhood now, we don't have potable water, right? The electricity goes out every now and then, nothing crazy. We have a lot of issues with infrastructure where you have all these residences that have popped up. And I was mentioning before, in my neighborhood, we've had, in the past 7 years, we've had about 9 to 10 new residences in my small neighborhood of maybe 9 to 10 blocks. But yet nobody's fixed the potholes in the street. Nobody's fixed the flooding in the street, right? So I've seen both sides of those issues, but at the same time, it just made more sense for me, for my dollar to be able to extend here, less money to be able to live longer here. And then on top of that, what made a big difference for me was that the food situation. When I go to, I'm a health nut because I'm scared with these screws in my back that I'm gonna, somehow mess up my body. And so I'm all about RFK's making America healthy again. That's a whole other situation. I can go to the supermarket in Dominican Republic and I can buy 60 to 70% of the products made in Dominican Republic, made from here. And so fresh that we've actually had a frog pop out of a piece of lettuce, right? Now, I don't say that because it's as nasty as it is, because that's how fresh it is, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when you go to Puerto Rico, it's the opposite. You have 70 to 80% of the products in Puerto Rico are made from the United States and shipped in. There is what's called the Jones Act, where if you are doing business with Puerto Rico, you must have the ship be an American ship, and they can't go directly to Puerto Rico. Let's say you're doing business with China. They have to go to Miami first, switch boats from a Chinese boat to an American boat, then go down to Puerto Rico. So think about the cost, the time, how long it takes to do that. The food is not going to be as fresh. There's an issue in Puerto Rico that they have not put a lot of money into the infrastructure for fishing. So almost 90 to 95% of the fish that you eat in Puerto Rico on an island are not from the island. They're shipped in from other waters. They're not from the Caribbean. So seeing those things is just like, I want to do more. It hurts, and I do what I can, right? I do work with various organizations. I help them out. I visit a lot. I'm still part of the conference. We do consistent events there. We're continuously helping the community there. My mom is on the board of the same conference, so I'm there all the time helping what I can and what how I can help out. But Dominican Republic it made I don't know, that those kind of small issues really made it for me where it's like, well, I'm comfortable here. I have family here. Let's give it a shot and let's see what happens. We gave ourselves a year to stay here and it's been 7. But within those 7 years, we own the apartment that we live in, that we were the first ones to live here, that it's only 5 years old, right? I own my vehicle outright that I bought here in Dominican Republic. So it's like, there's a lot of benefits to that short time frame. I mean, I can't imagine having to take out a 20-year, 25-year mortgage on a house. Like I can't compute that. I can't do it. So there's a lot of gives and takes on both. Yeah. I do make sure that I go to Puerto Rico often when I say like I got mi acento, like to recharge my accent. Like, so I do that a lot too, but it's the benefits of just living in the Caribbean in general.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for sharing that perspective, because I love the fact that you're still going to Puerto Rico, giving back, doing for the community, still doing business out there, helping. You said you're going out there tomorrow to meet with a client. So I love that. So thank you for sharing that perspective. We're coming up on the hour. Look, this has been a very fruitful, phenomenal conversation. Hopefully the listeners definitely got something from this conversation. One thing I always ask our guests before we end the show is, who is one person that needs to be a guest on the Latin Wealth podcast? The only rule is you have to know this person.
I have a friend that works in New York, Yesenia Quiñones. Yesenia Quiñones, she works with Chase. And she is one of, I think, the relationship managers, but she just opened a huge community center, like a financial community center for Chase in the Bronx. And she's somebody that I highly admire, that I can make an introduction for you, that I definitely think she needs to come on, because her perspective, I'm an attorney. I went to law school, so I don't have to do math, but her perspective from the community, right? Like in terms of how do we help our community understand wealth? How do we help our community understand finances? And how can we support them to be able to own our own properties? It's amazing. It's amazing. I definitely recommend her.
Yeah, definitely would love to connect with her. Let the people know where they can find you, reach out to you. Let the people know, and I'll link everything in the description of this podcast episode.
Sure. The best place to find me is on LinkedIn. Number 1, it's Pablo Segarra, Segarra. The second place is Instagram, Pablo Segarra, ESQ at the end. Those are the 2 places to find me right now.
Cool.
I'm doing a bit of a transition between my current company, and I'm actually working for a new job in January, which is a larger legal tech firm called Trademarks. So I'm going to be able to work with them and provide clients with trademark services throughout the world. So I'm really super excited about that. Unfortunately, it means I have to shut down my current business, SideHustle.Law, to be able to work with them. But it's part of the stepping stones, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I gotta be appreciative of the past year, of the clients that I've met, and the amazing experiences I've had have set me up for the next stage.
100%. I could definitely chop it up with you for a lot longer, but man, I appreciate the time, you coming on here, giving your game, sharing your story and whatnot. It's been great. And you guys know where to find us at Latin Wealth on all platforms: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to a podcast, you can find us. And it's the Latin Wealth family. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.